programs that we deliver to our students. After extensive consultation with the school boards, this government committed to maintaining and funding for the boards that would have seen decreases and to begin to transfer additional funds to those boards that should have had increases. By doing this, we believe that we were ensuring boards will have the funding they need to get the job done and that no student would be negatively impacted by the distribution of those funds. Boards are pleased with the additional funding in the 2006-2000 proposed budget, and in fact, that expression has come to our department from the Nova Scotia School Boards Association earlier this year. The department's multi-year strategy for public education is called Learning for Life 2, and there will be reference to that throughout the budget presentations. Learning for Life 2 is a vision and a commitment for the future of our students. There are 6 themes contained in that strategy: raising the bar, closing the gap, developing healthy, active learners, time to teach, time to learn, measuring and reporting successes, and strengthening partnerships. In raising the bar, this is designed to improve both school and student achievements, and this will happen through such programs and initiatives as the School Accreditation Program. We will be providing more mentors and supports for math and language arts teachers, and we will be improving our French as a second language program. We will also be introducing an international baccalaureate program to more schools across the province. Closing the gap. Closing the gap is designed for students who are not succeeding in the public school system, and we will provide such students with more options. To that end, we are pleased to include the extension of the tuition support program to a 3rd year. This will allow students with special needs to attend a designated private school when it is determined that such an intervention would help, quote, close the gap and prepare the students for re-entry back into the public school system. Another exciting program, which is called the O2, or Options and Opportunities, will provide comprehensive educational programs that will help bridge high school to post-secondary education and/or work destinations for every student. Successful programs currently exist in some of our boards, and this program will build on those successes. All school boards will have some high schools offering O2 this fall. There will be 27 schools in total. 3rd theme is developing healthy, active learners, and is designed to ensure that students become better, more engaged learners at school and healthier Nova Scotians for life. The Department of Health Promotion and Protection provides financial support for this initiative delivered in our schools. Each school board now has a consultant to lead and support these programs at the board level, and they will work closely with teachers and other staff. Providing education and raising awareness of students regarding their health and their lifestyles is our goal, and it will help students make better choices. 4th theme, Time to Teach and Time to Learn, will focus on student readiness to learn and will include the continuation of the pre-primary pilot program for 4-year-olds, which began this year in 19 sites. The students from the first year of that program will be entering our primary in September of this year, and their progress will be monitored throughout the year. In addition, how instructional time is used will be revisited, and required times per day for instruction in math and language arts will be identified. 5th theme, measuring and reporting successes. Mathematics and literacy assessments will be conducted in grades 3, 6, and 9, and these assessments will be developed by Nova Scotia teachers for Nova Scotia students based on Nova Scotia curriculum. The minister's report to parents will be the primary source of sharing that student achievement data with our publics. The last theme, strengthening partnerships, recognizes in public education our work with school boards, parents, teachers, students, communities, and the support for school advisory councils, for example, will be continued. The Learning for Life 2 program is a solid plan, evidence-based, and reflects extensive consultation with parents, teachers, and others. But our planned improvements do extend beyond the P-12 system into post-secondary education. Within the budget estimates for 2006-2007, our community colleges will receive more than $6 million in new money. This is a 7.4% increase in the funding over last year. We will add 321 new seats at the community college, and this is all part of the $123 million investment in our community college system, including the new campus in Dartmouth. And last spring, the government provided $4.75 million to support the development of NASCAD University's Port campus. We are building new schools and college campuses and renovating existing institutions to provide students with safe and healthy learning environments. But a subject related to school construction is that of school closure. And as promised, the review of regulations under the Education Act will begin this fall, with a report due in early 2007. And with the exception of one school from the Cape Breton Victoria Regional Board that's been closed for safety reasons, no additional school closures are expected before 2008. As students migrate from our public school system to post-secondary education, they can be confident that the province is taking steps to make a college or university education more affordable for more Nova Scotians. The province signed a memorandum of understanding with its universities in late 2004, and this MOU provides predictable and stable funding for our institutions, and in return for that, provides a 3.9% cap on tuition increases for most students. In fact, Statistics Canada recently reported that Nova Scotia had the lowest tuition increases in the Maritime provinces, proof that our MOU is working. The Millennium Access Grant Program was announced 1 year ago, and this program, in partnership with the Canadian Millennium Scholarship Foundation, opens the door to a college or university education for students from low-income families. We are reducing the parental contribution and doubling the employment and repayment bonuses under the debt reduction program. Our government continues its support for public libraries across the province. There was a $10.8 million support at the end of last year. We were able to provide them with an additional $1 million. And school libraries have received targeted funding to be used to refresh their school library resources and to address staffing of school libraries with library technicians. There is another significant element of the department that must be discussed, and that is the Skills and Learning Division. This division offers a number of programs and initiatives that are designed to promote the skills, trades, and lifelong learning in our province. This year's budget will support many initiatives that maximize opportunities for our young people while developing a skilled workforce for our province. A $174,000 funding increase will help the One Journey Work and Learn program, which identifies specific industries in need of employees and works with industry to train and provide employment for Nova Scotians who were previously on income assistance. Additional investments will support youth apprentices and attract more apprentices to the skilled trades. The Nova Scotia School for Adult Learning continues to have success in providing a wide range of education programs designed for adults who want to improve their reading and math skills or to complete their high school diploma. These programs are offered at more than 170 sites across the province, and this year alone, more than 500 Nova Scotians earned a high school graduation diploma for adults. So, Mr. Chairman, if I could recap, the Department of Education's budget will increase by $85 million to a total of $1.37 billion. And this includes priorities that were identified in our election platform. And I would like to remind members of those priorities. We will initiate a multi-year program to make university education more affordable to our students, extend the public class size reductions up to and including grade 6, introduce vocational and composite programming in our high schools, provide more support for ESL, English Second Language, increase investments in public school and university infrastructure on a needs basis, begin consultation on the second phase of the Nova Scotia Community College's growth plan, extend the province's tuition support program to 3 years, expand the number of international baccalaureate sites, continue to act upon the conclusions of the Black Learners Advisory Committee report, expand the Skills Nova Scotia framework to address the looming skills shortage in this province, ensure community welfare and student benefits are legislated criteria for school boards when they consider the future of schools with declining enrollments, review the bus transportation criteria to ensure young children are not walking too far or in unsafe conditions to their schools, make physical education a mandatory high school credit, and eliminate the need for not-for-profit groups and organizations to buy insurance when they use school buildings for recreational and community events. These were the priorities identified in our platform, and we as a government are committed to those priorities. While spending per student is a useful benchmark, it should not be the only benchmark for assessing the quality of education. And per student spending in Nova Scotia may lag behind some other provinces, but it's important to note that our pupil-teacher ratio matches the national average. Our province has a well-qualified and dedicated team of teachers who are making commitments to their students every day. They are the frontline educators who make a difference in the lives of thousands of students across this province. I'm proud of the contribution that they are making. This concludes the introduction to the budget estimates. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and we're ready for the questions.
Chair now recognizes the honourable member for Halifax-Shabukdo.
I hope not. Excuse me, Mr. Chair. Try Timberley Prospect.
My apologies, Timberley Prospect.
Looking more athletic one. Thank you. That's okay, Mr. Chair. Not a problem. Thank you for your introductory comments, Minister, and I want to welcome to the historic chamber here some familiar faces, and of course across the way. Not that I always agreed with them, but let me tell you, there is no one more accountable in this province than Dennis Cochran. He's always available. At times, I think maybe the media thinks he's too available. But it's been a pleasure working with the people in your staff, Minister, and I look forward to continued positive relationship when it comes to some of the important things that we deal with in education. And my compliments to you, Minister, on a 13-day learning slope, and I meant like you're going up the slope, and I know where you're coming from in that particular vocation. Many of my comments, of course, as probably one of your predecessors tell you, comes from my own experience or from people that I hear from. And I've heard from some people. I've heard from Grace Rogers, who recently retired as the librarian at Sir John A. Macdonald High School. I'm going to bring a few of Grace's comments to you. I've heard from Jim McFarlane, who was the principal at Fairview Junior High, and he wants me to bring some of his concerns to your attention. But since you've become the minister, I would assume that you've heard from some of your colleagues in schools you've worked with in the past. And I'm wondering, these people who you've worked with in previous positions during your career, what have they been asking you to put as a top priority as a Minister of Education?
The Honourable Minister of Education.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To the member opposite. When teachers and principals and parents are talking to me about education, their one request is that any and all supports are there to serve the needs of all students through all grades. And if we err on the side of the students, we cannot be faulted.
The honourable member for Timberley Prospect.
Well, I can't say that I have that consistency because, as we well know, as people have taught in the school system, everybody has strong opinions on something. And when it comes to certain issues, of course, they are going to make sure that when issues are brought forward, whether they're brought forward publicly by their MLA or the critic for a particular responsibility, I think it's always incumbent upon us to make sure that we are there to bring forward certain concerns. So I'd like to begin with an issue that's of major concern to many of my colleagues, to some teachers in my particular community of Timberley Prospect, and I would darely say probably across the province, a concern that resonates with classroom teachers from one end of the province to the other. And that is the growing violence in our schools. Violence in our schools that results in the fact that on certain occasions, for various reasons, there have to be students who end up being suspended from school, and they do have the privilege of attending their school removed from them for a period of time. This has been an escalating problem, It's been a concern that educators, vice principals, principals, guidance counselors, parents, and many grade 12 students point out the fact that there is a growing trend within our schools that more and more problems are solved in a violent manner by students enrolled in the school system. Now, in November of last year, in fact, on November 11th of 2005, Amy Smith, the provincial reporter for the Herald, covered the release of some statistics that the researcher for the NDP, Lorraine Glendenning, had very conscientiously gone about collecting from the boards around this province. And Miss Glendenning, recently coming here from Ireland, she got her induction by fire when I said to her after she received the job, the first task I'd like to know is how many students are suspended around this province? I thought it was a pretty simple question. I thought you called the Department of Education up and said, what are the statistics? Tell me who's been suspended, for what reasons, how many times? Well, that just didn't happen. As Ms. Glendenning later called me back about 2 days later and said, this is an impossible task. There is a complete lack of consistency across this province, and no matter what the minister is saying about tracking results, there is no such thing underway in this province. So here we have very anecdotal comments about violence in our schools, but we don't have the statistical results to say how many students have been suspended, for what reason, over what duration of time. So, of course, the press release was issued, the numbers were eventually gathered, and to Ms. Glendenning's credit, she did eventually track down the huge majority of numbers. But in the report that Ms. Smith brought forward in the Herald on November 11th, the headline says, Muir questions NDP figures. And I'm going to quote from it, and I could table this document if you're interested. Education Minister Jamie Muir is questioning the NDP figures on student suspensions, but the minister isn't offering up any numbers of his own. So, as someone with 13 days on the job, can you tell me about the tracking of suspension numbers? When will we ever be able to get a real handle on suspension numbers from one end of this province to the other?
The Honourable Minister of Education.
Mr. Chairman, to the member opposite, recognizing student violence and bullying and inappropriate behaviors in schools is stressful to teachers. There's no denying that. And what school boards are looking to do with the support of the department is to gather the statistics you speak of and to look at putting in place some initiatives that will help better track that. For example, we are currently looking at student information system, which will do that. It will track the numbers of incidents in a school, the number of times, for example, that a student is sent to the office, the nature of the infraction, and the outcome of that. And that information will be readily available, and it will be on a provincial system for tracking. That is not in the short term, but that is in the plan, and schools will be in-serviced, and administrators and guidance counselors will be in-serviced as to how they follow through with that tracking system and what they record and how it's recorded. So we recognize that the safety of our teachers and our students is a concern, and we'll be working with the boards to try to address that.
The Honourable Member for Timberley Prospect.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, that response isn't what I'm looking for. I've heard this thing before from your predecessors, and we all hear of the anecdotal comments, the subjective analysis, and I will tell you there's a lack of consistency from one end of this province to the other when it comes to what is inappropriate action or inappropriate language for length of suspensions in what particular board or what particular school. If this isn't rocket science, what's wrong with having the numbers centralized in the department? Why does one researcher for one political party have to take almost 5 weeks of her new life in England, in Canada, as she comes in from Ireland? Why does she have to take the first 5 weeks that she's working for the NDP caucus doing work that basically should be in the trademark building and should be there and be ready to be analyzed. That doesn't seem to be rocket science to me. I mean, it takes a phone call to a particular CEO or superintendent saying, we need these numbers. How are you tracking them? What are you at this stage looking at when it comes to consistency? Because as we well know, it differs from one school to another school. It differs from one board to another board. So I can say, and I heard your answer, it will be looked at. It will be tracked. How long will this take? Because if we have the problem in our school system, and if we have the problem which we believe we have when it comes to out-of-control children who are taking a disproportionate amount of time, what's the problem with getting the numbers together to conclusively prove, yes, in certain boards, in certain schools, there are issues? Because I can tell the minister opposite, and I think her staff will tell you too, there are school principals who are pretty devious, and I'll use that term devious. When I am in the legislature, I guess I could say such things. They're pretty devious when it comes to the fact that they said, oh, we don't suspend anybody in our school. No, there hasn't been anybody suspended. Well, I mean, they're misbehaving teenagers if you're in a junior high school in particular. What do you mean they're not being suspended? Do they have in-school suspensions? Oh, well, yes, we have in-school suspensions. Oh, yes, but we provide homework for them. So you suspend students. That lack of consistency from school to school and board to board is a glaring error. And I have basically, and I know we're just starting off this hour, I'm basically quite sick and tired of saying the tracking will take place. The tracking should have taken place, and it should be taking place now. Can you give me any specific guidelines when we can be looking forward to receiving the specifics of this information?
The Honourable Minister of Education.
Mr. Chairman, to the member opposite, a couple of points. 3 years ago, there was a code of student conduct that was developed provincially and provided to all school boards to be implemented. And that code of student conduct does address some of those inappropriate behaviors. More specific to the tracking, we have a commitment in our budget this year, $415,000, to work towards developing that student information system so that those kinds of statistics can be recorded and boards and administrators in the boards can respond to those inappropriate behaviors. But it takes a bit of time to develop that, and time is of the essence. We recognize that. And we also recognize that this is a concern all across Canada. Many provinces have looked at implementing an 8 to 10 year plan, and we have begun this year with that initial investment of $415,000.
The Honourable Member for Timberley Prospect.
Well, I'll leave that topic at that. I know that the particular teacher asked me to bring that concern forward. The principal of Fairview Junior High was always concerned that there were certain schools in the province that did a very studious, conscientious job in collecting these numbers. We were always asked to move them onto the board level, but they sort of disappeared into this bottomless pit at the Halifax Regional School Board, and we never know where they ended up. I want to turn to another topic, and that's standardized testing. It's a philosophical question. It's one, of course, that I think we have differences of opinion on, but let's get it on the record right here. There is a need in this province for standardized testing. It's an important component when it comes to having students, as they move on to the next secondary, post-secondary level of education, there is a role for standardized testing. I'm wondering that if the new minister could outline for us, and I'm not going to give her a free wheel here, but if she could outline what she thinks about the current standardized testing process, particularly with grade 12 math in our high schools across this province.
The Honourable Minister of Education.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the member opposite, I did mention in my introduction, but I will elaborate a little bit more, that we are looking at testing math and literacy at the grade 3, 6, and 9 level. This will be an assessment that's developed by our Nova Scotia teachers based on our Nova Scotia curriculum, and we will be collecting that data and using that assessment data to track success and progress, and if there are areas that appear not to be showing the progress that we want, the assessment is detailed enough that we can bore down into that and determine what particular strand in either math or language arts needs further assessment. So we're very proud of that assessment tool, and the one component that we would emphasize is the monitoring and evaluating of that assessment tool, so that we do have it for comparison purposes, and we do have it for program building to address the areas that may not be progressing as quickly as we would like it to be. With respect to the grade 12 math exam, and I'm sure that there's been lots of discussion in the House about that, again, we're looking at that math assessment by a comparison basis, so that every student in Nova Scotia, when they leave their grade 12, will be going into whatever post-secondary training program they can go into, having achieved or been exposed to the same curriculum and been successful with the same curriculum all across the province. So that is, I think, to addressing the standardized component of the assessment.
The honourable member for Timberley Prospect.
So I can take from your comments that you're generally satisfied with the process when it comes to standardized testing in this province. And I want to bring a concern forward. I want to use this math teacher's example. Again, it's one of the schools in my jurisdiction, in my constituency, because I can say that there are many grade 12 math teachers who are not impressed with the process. They're not impressed with the input that they have. They're not impressed with the fact of how they are called upon, as they say so often to me. Teaching grade 12 math is like being on a conveyor belt. You just never stop. And when it comes down, of course, if you're in a semestered school and you happen to miss 2 days of school for winter weather or for what other reason, winter weather is usually the biggest problem, you're missing a huge amount of time. And that conveyor belt called grade 12 math has put these teachers in very stressful situations. It's put the students in very stressful situations. So I want to ask a rather specific question, and I would appreciate the fact that you might not have this here with you, but one of the lines in every budget, it comes down to markers fees. Markers fees. That's, after all, when it comes to the marking of evaluations for whatever courses or whatever standardized tests. And I don't expect you to have this number right at hand, but that breakdown of markers fees was something that I would like to be interested in. When we look at the grade 12 evaluation of those standardized tests, I fully question whether we're getting the best bang for our buck when it comes to these exams. Exactly, can you provide for me at some time, perhaps not today, I understand that, can you provide for me a breakdown of the markers fees by standardized test? How much did it cost to mark the grade 12 math exams? How much did it cost to mark the literacy tests for the grade 6s? Because there are many teachers who are questioning the fact, we're talking about limited dollars all the time. Well, are we really getting a good bang for our buck when it comes to standardized testing and the markers fees?
The Honourable Minister of Education.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And one part of your question, I will suggest to you that we do not have the detail as to the number of markers per standardized test and the cost for that, but we can certainly make that available. However, I would want to suggest to you that not all math assessments, for example, are marked centrally, that they are marked by teachers in individual boards, and a random selection of those would be submitted to the department for marking here. So if the marking budget that you're looking at, I think you need to understand that it's not every math exam being marked by a set of markers at the department. So we do have teachers who do mark those exams in their own schools. But as far as the detail as to what the costs are per standardized test, we will provide that for you once that's made available. No problem.
The Honourable Member for Timberley Prospect.
I want to go back to the grade 12 math results in particular. it seems to me that there's a growing lag of when we get the information. You know, the students write the exams, and the teachers are marking the portion of the exams. They're then moving the results on for analysis at whatever board or at the department level. I mean, there's a great, huge amount of pressure upon these teachers to have that material submitted and get it in as soon as possible. But then it seems we wait forever to get the results back. And in some situations, particularly in a semestered school, a teacher is teaching a particular subject, and I keep coming to math because it is that lightning rod course it always seems when results come out. But if we come back to the semestered system and we look at, well, how did they actually do? And I used this example a number of times with staff at the department. You know, if there's a problem with the quadratic equation question on the standardized grade 12 math exam, then let's deal with that problem. Let's deal with the teachers. Let's deal with the problem looking at the students. Why aren't they getting question 38, which is on quadratic equations? But by the time that next exam comes out, we don't even have the results yet. Now, I could be wrong with this, but the time lag of last January's semestered results, we don't have those yet. I don't need them. My daughters, thank God they had their mother's brains, endured grade 12 math and moved on to other things. But the teachers, the parents, we're not aware of the semestered results of the January exams. What takes so long? The teachers are under the gun, if I can use that expression, to get the results in. Make sure they get into the department. Make sure they're the board through the department. Make sure that they're there, that we can have these results done as quickly as possible. But then it takes forever for the results to be brought back forward to the eye of the public when we can look at what are the results. Now, we had last January, we had a semestered school system finish. We still don't have the results. And the question is, why not? Why are these results, are they being held back? I mean, the obvious question is, are they so bad that we don't want to admit them? Or on the other hand, heaven forbid we're negative, on the other hand, we're looking at the fact, if these exams results are so good, we should make them known to the students. We should be complimenting the students and complimenting the teachers. But now, we have nothing. So the grade 12 semestered exam results from January, where are they, and why does it always take so long to get the results?
Honourable Minister of Education.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and to the member opposite. I think I mentioned this earlier, but the exams that are prepared by Nova Scotia teachers based on Nova Scotia curriculum for Nova Scotia students are marked by Nova Scotia teachers, and teachers have those results immediately. Those results can and will be shared with parents as the teacher and the school deem fit. What happens with the samples that are pulled in here and which become part of the minister's report, if you're speaking about the delay in getting that information, that's one issue. But if you're speaking about the delay in teachers knowing what areas of the exam provided some difficulty for students, that information is known immediately when the teachers do the marking of the exam. And most teachers, I believe all teachers, would take that as information that they could use to go back and revisit some areas of the curriculum that may need more attention.
Honourable Member for Kimberley Prospect.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and welcome to the chair. But teachers are always interested in comparing how their students do with other students and other schools. They're intrigued with the fact of, if I can use the quadratic equation example again, you know, and heaven forbid I had to teach anybody anything about quadratic equations. But I mean, the teacher is saying, my students don't do well in quadratic equations. What's it like in the rest of the province? I understand the marks are going back, but at one time, the previous minister, twice removed, if I can put it that way, it sounds like a family relation, I believe it was Ms. Purvis, was always very accountable when it came to getting the results out. We haven't seen these results. And more people are looking at the fact, well, by the time they eventually come out, what is actually going to be the result? This time I want to bring the concern up of an ex-student of mine an ex-student of mine who is old enough to admit that he has a daughter that I also taught in school, so I guess we do the math, I'm getting there. But I want to talk about a wonderful little girl who graduated from Brookside Junior High School named Laura Bootler. Laura Bootler, the daughter of Mike and Julia Bootler, is attending the University of Maine for a BEd. She has to go out of this province and out of this country to get an education degree. And there are some students who are saying, there's some extra dollars and it's tucked away in the northern woods of Maine, which makes an advantage or a disadvantage for a father concerned about his daughter being away from home for the first time. But the concern is they can go to the University of Maine and get a BEd quicker and probably with a lot more efficiency than they can with the current 2-year BEd program that I'm talking about within our province. Can the minister offer some guidance and leadership on this issue? Why is it necessary for kids who want to be teachers in the province of Nova Scotia? Why is it necessary for them to have to go to the University of Maine to get their degrees, when surely there are within this province, based upon the universities that we have, ample opportunities here? I know we can talk about the numbers, but it seems to me really a shame that young kids like Laura Bootler, she's going to be a math teacher, incidentally. She's going to be a math teacher, probably with French immersion. She can probably pick her spot. She's probably hired as I speak, but she could not get accepted here. She has a BA from the Mount St. Vincent University, but because of numbers or the limited number of people available, she has had to go to the University of Maine. In my view, that has to stop. Kids in this province should be educated within our universities. Now, they might go over the Tantramar Marshes to go to a fabulous university there, but I'm looking about the fact they're going out of our country. They're going out of our country to get a BEd. I'm wondering if the minister would agree with me that really BEd students attending the University of Maine should stop. Perhaps our universities here should look at expanding the program, and perhaps further we should have a 1-year BEd 12-month program.
Honourable Minister of Education.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To the member opposite. Teacher training, I guess, is something that's kind of near and dear to my heart, and I would expect that during the time as minister it will be something that will be under review. I will suggest to you, I've just been advised that discussions did take place between our department and universities looking at a reduced BEd program so that the situation you're sharing would not or did not have to happen. And it's my understanding the universities did not support that. So I guess my answer to you is it has been raised before and it will be discussed in the future.
Honourable Member for Timberley Prospect.
Well, I'm pleased to see that. I can point to my colleagues from Cape Breton. I know that the member for Cape Breton Centre has had a son who graduated from Acadia with an education degree, and that his daughter, who's a graduate last year from Cape Breton University, she is going to the University of Maine. She's enrolled at the University of Maine, and I'm sure she will receive some good training there and will be a fine teacher when the time comes with the training that she's going to be received. But I'm aware of the fact that at Cape Breton University, there is this agreement with Memorial. There is some kind, and I'm aware of some of the complexities of it, but I'd rather not go into that. I mean, we're always looking at boosting our universities. We're looking at the fact that we're going to have a teacher shortage for whatever reasons, mainly because we're retiring because of age. But I mean, something progressive has to take place here. I mean, an obvious place for a teacher training institution would be at Cape Breton University. It would be an ideal location. It would be an institution that would benefit from the program, and furthermore, there would be students from across the island, across the province, and probably across the region who would decide, I want a BEd, and I'm going to go to Cape Breton to get it. So I urge the minister to take a leadership role on that particular issue. I'm going to turn to school librarians. They're like dinosaurs. I don't think that my old friend and colleague from years ago, incidentally, who was a teacher during the days when the young member from Queens was a student at this high school, Grace Rogers has retired. It's like, using her words, it's like being put out to pasture, because now we no longer have librarians. In fact, I could get specific and say, how many actual school librarians do we have in this province? How many school librarians do we have? Teacher librarians. Not library techs, not library assistants. How many school librarians do we have in this province?
Honourable Minister for Education.
Mr. Chairman, to the member opposite, in my introductory remarks, I did mention the support to our school libraries and the positions in the form of library technicians. In answer directly to your question, school boards are putting library technicians and library assistants in their libraries in place of or in lieu of librarians. The numbers of librarians who currently are in our schools would be very, very few.
Honourable Member for Timberley Prospect.
Well, I'll throw out the number 3, and now that Ms. Rogers has retired from Sir John A., I guess we're down to 2 librarians. Yet we're going to talk literacy, we're going to talk the focal point of a school, we're going to talk about books and having them available to students, we're going to talk about all those wonderful things. But the person who I always relied upon many years ago in the high school that I attended, and as a classroom teacher, the person I always sent my students to is, we're going to the library, and with a particular topic of the week is this, that, or whatever, and the school librarian is going to be of a huge assistance to us. I think it is a regressive step. Library techs do their job, they do it well, but a school librarian has always been and should always be a vital part of the academic growth of any school. I want to turn to guidance counselors. Because I have a number of friends still in the teaching profession, one in particular, Bonnie Steeves, who is a fabulous guidance counselor. Bonnie Steeves is a guidance counselor in a junior high, as is Sue Hannum, a guidance counselor at Tantallon Junior High. They've brought this concern to my attention, and I know you can say the board should be handling that, but I think there should be designated dollars to say that there should be, in elementary schools, there should be guidance counselors. I believe that in junior highs, guidance counselors play a crucial role. And of course, in high school, as they prepare students for post-secondary institutions, they also play a very important role. But a guidance counselor in an elementary school deals with hugely personal issues. And maybe in the days that we went to school, there wasn't a need to have a guidance counselor in an elementary school. And I'm sure with the size of some smaller elementary schools, guidance counselors might be shared between a number of schools. But I believe, and I'm wondering if the minister would comment on this, that there is a need for designated dollars to make sure that guidance counselors are not a phenomenon that suddenly start in grade 7 or in middle schools in grade 6, but that there should also be guidance in elementary schools. I'm wondering if you could share your thoughts with me on that topic.
Honourable Minister for Education.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the member opposite, the concern that you've raised about guidance counselors in our schools was also raised by principals at a most recent conference where the department listened to what principals were saying about the needs and the concerns in their schools. And one of those needs and concerns that was raised was directly related to the numbers of guidance counselors and the ratio of guidance counselors to students. And so the department listened to that and reacted to that. And in the budget, you would see, or you'll check a line, there's a $500,000 commitment. The first time that that commitment has been made directly to support for guidance counselors. That money will go to the boards to be used for guidance support, and it would be at the discretion of the board where the needs are within their board. But it's the first of many installments to bring that guidance counselor student ratio up to an acceptable standard.
Honourable Member for Timberley Prospect.
And I point out to the minister opposite, those are provincial dollars. You should have a direct influence on where those dollars are spent. You should have a direct influence in saying, well, you can use that with guidance. I'm saying that it should be designated to be dealing with in elementary schools, because elementary school children these days have a whole different set of circumstances. Issues that perhaps we were in school were delayed for various reasons until junior high or even high school. There are now students at the elementary level who are coming to the classrooms across this province with issues, huge issues. And if you are going to expect a classroom teacher to refer somebody in his or her school to someone with advice when it comes to some personal counseling, opening a door with whatever kind of psychological help for whatever reason, I mean, that's the role of a guidance counselor. And the school system that we work in, that I worked in, there was always that delay, but the matter got addressed. In the meantime, on the ground in your school, you had a guidance counselor who would deal with the issues. On the topic of personal issues, I know that teen health centers are an important and vital service now provided in our schools. But the issue that I point out is teen health centers shouldn't just be in high schools. In fact, I could be corrected on this matter. I have been corrected in the past. There is a teen health center in one junior high, Ridgecliff Junior High in the community of Beachville, which services Beachville, Lakeside, Timberlake. One teen health center in one junior high. Now, it says to me that when it comes to many of the issues that people who are dealing with teen health, teen sexuality, and many other issues with young people across this province, we should have teen health centers in every junior high. They're important in high school, but in every junior high, there should be teen health centers. So I need a guarantee that the funding will be in place at Ridgecliff. You know, I recently attended a fundraiser for the Teen Health Center in Ridgecliff. At that time, there were 4 volunteers in our community that were recognized. We had a beautiful meal and an auction. The auctioneer, of course, was a very good auctioneer and actually made some money for the group. But here we are funding a teen health center in a growing community of the Beachville, Lakeside, Timberlake at Ridgecliff Junior High because we're having an auction in the school and we're having a fundraising dinner and we're recognizing volunteers in the community. So I think it's of real consequence that this government and future governments commit to the fact that dollars should be made available for teen health centers in junior highs, because that's a huge gap. I know the previous minister at times was taken aback by when on occasion I would call junior highs a curriculum wasteland, because it seems to me that there's a lack of leadership for one reason or another. All the glory goes to the elementary kids. Everybody loves elementary teachers. When you're in high school, of course, the lights at the end of the tunnel, and aren't they great? They're going out the door. But you really earn your stripes as a junior high teacher. And you really earned your stripes because of the various issues that take place among the young men and women at that age. So I want the minister to comment on the need for teen health centers in junior high schools. And correct me if I'm wrong, that the only teen health center in this province is located at Ridgecliff Middle School in the community of Beachville, Lakeside, and Timberlake.
Honourable Minister for Education.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the member opposite, I couldn't agree with you more that teen health centers are a critical part of all of our high schools and should be a part of all of our junior high schools. And that is certainly a goal that we're working toward. Teen health centers are the result of a partnership with both health and health promotion and protection, and quite often with communities. And so we're quite anxious to work with those partners to make sure that we extend that service as funds permit to include all junior, senior high schools. High schools are combinations of grade 7 to 12 schools now that have teen health centers would have access to that center by junior high students. And but we recognize the need, we recognize the partnership and the funding that comes with it. When we're building schools, the Department of Education provides the spaces and the facilities or the renovations of a space or a facility to accommodate that health center. So it truly is a partnership, Is it enough? Not yet, but we certainly have a goal to reach that.
Honourable Member for Timberley Prospect.
And I thank the Minister for that reply. That's encouraging, and I'm sure that I encourage other MLAs to, when the time arrives this fall and we need a break from the routine of this House, you want to come out to Ridgecliffe and see the Teen Health Centre and see how important it is, and you want to see how vital it is to that school. You know, it's really the area of the school where students feel comfortable dropping in, speaking to the teen health people who are working there. And it's a vital part of that school, and it's a success model that hopefully will be followed in others. Now, the Minister and I will be differing on various things, and the previous Minister and I think, agreed on this topic. But I'm going to throw it out there because nothing absolutely drives me to distraction more than the Atlantic Institute for Market Studies review of high schools across this province. Mr. Sirtwell, you might know of his wife. She was a recent candidate in a local election, right? She didn't do that well, unfortunately. I don't know if you followed the results or not. She ran a good campaign. A lot of money was spent. But Mr. Sirtwell is the spokesman for the Atlantic Institute of Market Studies. And once a year, they receive huge publicity as they rank the high schools across this province. There is nothing more divisive, there is nothing more negative, in my opinion, when that ranking comes out. It makes no sense. They don't rank the high schools according to enrollment. They don't rank the high schools whether it's a grade 7 to 12 school or primary to 12 school. They rank the school by never going to the school. Think about that. You're going to rank schools across this province, yet you've never stood a foot in any of the schools. Yet you receive all this publicity. You've ranked them for this reason and that reason. And you know, and incidentally, during the last report, he wasn't too pleased with some of the responses that he received from the Department of Education, particularly when it came to discipline statistics, because they weren't available. So I want to know what the Minister thinks of the yearly Ames report, because basically I'm just sick of their free publicity. I think it's a really negative, divisive tool, pitting one community against another community, pitting one school against another school. But I'm waiting to see what the Minister thinks of the yearly Ames publicity stunt.
Honourable Minister for Education.
Mr. Chairman, to the member opposite, the report from the Ames group certainly raises a lot of controversy every time it's published, and probably some of the most anxiety is amongst the teachers in the schools that are in that ranking list. Because of that negativity to ranking, you will not find that our department does that, and we do not support the Ames approach to ranking schools. So I think we agree on something else. Thank you.
Honourable Member for Timberley Prospect.
But you know, I will share with many members present who I think and what schools I think, high schools, schools that I've been in, and I want to share with members opposite. I know that one member in particular is always intrigued when he stands in his place and starts to talk about the Cobequid Cougars. But let me tell you, you go into CEC, you go into Parkview, you go into those schools and you see the traditions and the banners and the musicals and the community influence. Those aren't things you can measure. Those are things you gotta feel. Those are athletic accomplishments. They are academic accomplishments. They're musical and drama accomplishments. That's how you rank schools. And if it's necessary to rank them, you look at the schools and how well they've done, or perhaps how in some cases they haven't done so well. But I think it's really a divisive report. It's not something, you know, I know that members opposite at times think there's not a microphone or a TV camera that I don't like, but you know, when the Ames report comes out, I'm not interested in talking about it. It's a waste of time, and I see the previous minister with a smirk in his face. Take me up on that, I guarantee you. You won't see me commenting on the Ames report, not because of Mr. Sirtwell's involvement in it. I've given him advice a number of years to at least go out and see the schools, to at least walk into that gymnasium and CEC and realize, how can you not rank that school in the top 5 in this province? How can you not rank it there? You know, just because if you look at the number of university students or you look at the number of people who move on to whatever institution, and that's the mark of success of a school. That's not true. You know, one of the categories is how many of them move on to post-secondary institutions and how well they do as they move through their school career. That's just not the way you rank schools. Schools are many other things. They serve an important role in our communities. Teachers take it personally, and they're just downright unfair. Anyway, enough of that rant. It's been said again. Good luck, Mr. Sirtwell, and not necessarily in the next election. I want to turn my attention, if I can, to an alarming trend in this province called the growing number of private schools. And I think it's alarming, to be quite truthful with the minister. It's alarming because it's a growth industry which, for some reasons, is a reflection on the fact that the public school system is unable to deliver, particularly when it comes to high-need students, is not able to deliver the service that parents want for these children. I'm very pleased to hear, and I've supported it before, when the tuition support system went from 2 to 3 years. I know that I've had a number of friends who've set up private schools for various reasons, and their enrollment, they just keep turning people away. In September, when enrollments come on for private schools, particularly at the elementary age level, primary to 5, primary to 6, you will see that it is a growth industry that is unfortunately not a real great endorsement of the public school system in this province. And I can use the example of a fellow Mount Allisonian who was concerned when his little girl was headed off to the school, that he believed that probably the best place for her to attend would be the Crossroads Academy in Tantallon. Private school, very well run by those teachers, because the enrollments are low. In most classes, they are 12 or under. And I mean, a huge advantage, if you can afford it, when it comes to private schools, particularly at the elementary level. So I'm interested in the minister's view on my comments, whether she is alarmed with the growing number of private schools. Maybe, it's just my perspective, I don't know across the province the number of private schools, but I do know that in the community that I represent, there are more and more students who are attending private schools. They're attending private schools for the reason of enrollment, but they're also attending private schools because perhaps this young man or young woman is a high-needs student who needs more attention than the regular classroom and the regular classroom teacher, through no fault of his or her own, can offer, but that these young men and young women attend private schools. And, you know, I can mention the Christian Academy in Timberley, Crossroads Academy in Tantallon. There is a private school on the Hammonds Plains Road. The name escapes me. There's, of course, the various institutions here within the HRM, the Churchill Academy in particular. They're turning students away. It's a trend that is an unfortunate one, and it's really a comment on the fact that across this province, or at least across this region, we are unable to deliver the service that parents expect, and therefore they're opting to send their sons and daughters to private schools.
Honourable Minister for Education.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the member opposite, people use a variety of reasons for why they might choose a private school. And that choice is theirs. Those decisions are theirs. However, as Minister of Education, as a teacher in the public school system for a lot of years, I'm continue to be very proud of the... 5 years. We don't know how many years. That's right. I didn't tell you that, did I? I started when I was 10, okay? To get back to the question, a lot of parents make decisions to send their students to private schools for a variety of reasons. Those are their personal reasons. But my experience in public education as a teacher and as a supervisor and as a parent is that we do have a good quality program. Our teachers are second to none, and we will continue to put money into our public schools to make sure that that quality of education continues to be delivered. You spoke about class sizes, and that's one of the areas that we've addressed, and one of the commitments in the election platform is to look at capping class sizes so that we do have reasonable numbers in those elementary grades for pupil-teacher ratio there to be something that is workable. So if people want to make those choices, that is their choice, but I'm not convinced it's because the quality of education in public schools is not good.
Honourable Member for Timberley Prospect.
Well, that's a topic we can have another time, not just our respective ages, but I started teaching school when I was 14, incidentally. There's another school in this province that has suddenly been put under the microscope, and it's been working for a long time in a great way. And you know, classroom teachers were always saying the Memorial Example in North Sydney, what a wonderful school that is. And the programs that they're offering, I mean, particularly when it comes to the flexibility in programming. But why was it only at Memorial? How come it only was allowed to continue to survive there? When we looked across this province, and under a previous government of a different stripe, I remember some of those days, although I won't go back into Mr. Harrison's days in particular. But let me tell you, the Memorial Example in North Sydney is a wonderful one. It's one that we have to continue. It's one that we have to spread across this province. And when I attended the Truro Conference at CEC, I know I could sense when I attended that O2 part of the conference. And if there are people present who aren't aware of what the O2, they're breathing new life into the school system, I'll put it that way. That O2 program is a great direction. It's one that I fully support. But you know, it's like reinventing the wheel. Every once in a while in the school system, they seem to say, that's not working. We have to change all that. You know, and I want to point out, for example, some of the most prominent graduates of the communities that I represent. Coastal Restoration. Coastal Restoration operates out of downtown beautiful West Dover. And the two young men who run Coastal Restoration, Bryce and Blaine Morash, graduated from the grade 9 program at Sir John A. Macdonald. And they went on from there to vocational school. And they came out with a trade, a bricklaying trade. And now when you see Coastal Restoration and how they are repairing these historic buildings around this province, two very successful men who've worked hard their whole life, employed many people in the communities that I represent, and they are particular graduates of a program that has worked so well. But my issue, of course, comes down to the fact Memorial's a good place to have it, but you know, we should have it in Île-Madame, because there are examples in Île-Madame when the fishing industry could be benefiting from an example such as there is in that community in Richmond. We should be doing it in other parts of our province, where we should be having the O2 program breathing life into schools around this province. So my compliments to the minister, the previous minister, and to the department, but let's not wait too long. Let's make it work. We know it works. Teachers know it works. Let's make it happen. That's a success story, and now I've got a negative one. It must be my nature as an opposition member. Richcliffe Middle School is one very difficult school to get in for community use. Richcliffe School, the school that I mentioned earlier in the community of Beachville, is a P3 school under a previous government. Wasn't it of an experiment that we all want to forget? Well, Richcliffe this summer, each year the Beachville community hosts an annual basketball tournament. They wanted, in the second week of August, the opportunity to be able to get into Ridgecliffe School to use the facility. The answer? No. Not available this summer because of the cleaning schedule at this P3 school. Now, I've heard the minister talk about this, and I know my time is quickly going on because I can go on about this forever. P3 schools, public schools, the private partnership, access to the schools. Now, there are other examples around the province that I hear aren't working too well. But when we deal with the P3 group that runs schools in the HRM, it is very difficult to get into their schools. And if they do let you in, they charge you an arm and a leg. So here's a community, an historic community of Beachville, that wants to have an event scheduled in this school, their school, up on the hill in Beachville Estates, just above the historic community of Beachville. Now, the kids from Lakeside and Timberley also go there. The answer is no, you can't get in. What do you mean, no, you can't get in? It's a school in our system. We should be allowed to get into these schools. They should be allowed to be in there for free. It's a non-profit organization. It is a community group that has deep, deep roots in the community of Beachville. But they not only can't get in with a cost, they've just been told to go away. Now, I've put up with this for a number of years, Minister. I have heard that we're going to allow the nonprofit groups, seniors, young people, soccer groups, would get access to schools across this province. This summer, it's not happening in my community again. It's not happening again. And basically, the communities that are served by P3 schools in particular are sick and tired of it. I'm wondering if you could be of some assistance to the community of Beachville, Lakeside, and Timberlea on this important issue.
Honorable Minister for Education.
Mr. Chairman, to the member opposite, P3 schools certainly have provided our communities with beautiful facilities. They have, however, taken away some of the responsibility and direction from the department because they are private developers. And what I would encourage communities to do through their principal to the private developer is to look at more workable schedules for cleaning those schools so that community concerns and community events and community activities can be accommodated in those. But there are certainly agreements between the developer with the developer that have to be acknowledged, and we would, as I say, encourage people to look at ways to open those schools at more convenient times for some of those summer activities that do involve community and are important to community.
The honourable member for Timberlea Prospect.
You know, I appreciate the fact that this is that steep learning curve we're talking about. And I know we can talk further to the minister on this topic, and I know that staff is involved in these negotiations. But that's a disappointing answer. I understand. I hope you don't take this personally, but you know, there's a lot of complexities there, and these developers have got to be put in their place. He's got to be put in their place. We're running the school system in this province, not a developer. And you know, I don't want to pursue it because it just drives me crazy with the fact that beautiful schools, we can't get in them, right? But I mean, let's move on. Let's go to something else here. September will soon be here, of course, quicker than we've ever had as provincial legislators. And you'll see the headlines: school fees. Away we go on school fees. And there will do this potpourri as we go from school to school, what's involved in this school. Yearbooks cost so much in this school. Lockers cost so much in this school. We'll all look at it and say, that shouldn't be the way we charge kids to go to school. And they'll have to buy school agendas in some schools. And, you know, it's like a smorgasbord. You know, you send the information home to the parents. And in some situations, I want you to know, and we talked about it at our caucus meeting recently, we want to be able to help out students in our schools, or parents of students in our schools, who cannot afford these school fees. Now, I mean, we've heard it before, we've heard the concerns before. This September, is it going to be any more consistent across this province than it has been in the past? Because some of these school fees, I mean, we are charging some kids in some situations for necessities. We're charging them for necessities. I mean, a yearbook is not a necessity. Maybe you're graduating from grade 12, yes, they want a yearbook. A yearbook is not a necessity. A locker is a necessity. A locker to get a kid organized, to know where they're going, to have them ready for the day is a necessity. Is it still necessary to charge kids for lockers? Is it still necessary to charge kids for lab fees? Lab fees. So that when my daughter was an art student, the lab fees that she faced over the years, she would come home and say, to her mother usually, "Mom, I need this amount of money for this particular trip that we're going on, or I need this because I need new material in art, or I need new material in chemistry where my lab fee for the second semester is so much." I mean, we're not talking about yearbooks here. We're talking about charging fees for necessities in the school system. Predictably, in September, staff will be preparing, and I know you'll be prepared to comment on this topic. It's a yearly, annual pain in the butt, if I can say that. Excuse me, Mr. Chairman. It's usually, you weren't listening. It's an annual pain in the rear end. But let me tell you, sir, it is an issue that is not going to go away. And I'm wondering if you're ready for September when you're asked to be commenting upon school fees and the lack of consistencies from one end of this province to the other.
The Honourable Minister of Education.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the member opposite. School fees fall into two categories, but we do have a policy, and we will make sure that that policy is enforced. And that policy says that it will ensure that students are not charged for core curriculum activities. That would be your lab fees. What I would ask the minister opposite, if you find in September that a school is charging a lab fee, I would like you to let me know, because lab fees are not to be charged. They are considered to be core curriculum activities. Yearbook, athletic kinds of endeavors are school-related, and school advisory councils are in place at every school, and they, as part of their advisory capacity, work with the administration at the school and have a lot of input, or should have a lot of input, into such things as yearbook and school trip fees and so on. But curriculum-related activities, there should not be, and there will not be fees charged to students.
Time has expired. We'll now recognize the honourable member from Kings West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and certainly welcome the minister for her first go around on the estimates, and also welcome members from the Department of Education, and in particular the Deputy Minister, who I had a number of dealings with in my earlier critic role, and I am now back as the Liberal critic for education, and pleased to be there. However, just getting up to speed, actually, on some of the more recent topics and concerns that are there. So I did pen a few notes to start off by way of a beginning today. And certainly, I'm certainly pleased to speak on the estimates on education as a former educator of 30 years and vice principal at West Kings High School in the Annapolis Valley. Certainly the education system in a general fashion, and in particular in relation to that school, very, very much have a good feel for. The education system in Nova Scotia employs thousands of people dedicated to the teaching of our students to provide a better future. This not only involves teachers, but administrative assistants, staff members with various jobs. Our education system has the potential to be the best in Canada, but we must begin now to ensure that this is possible. And certainly when it comes to the national stage, it would be nice if I could stand here in my place today and say that certainly on all of the national testing parameters that we do have, that Nova Scotia was back at least to a place somewhere in the middle when it came to where we are when standards are measured across Canada. For a number of years now, we have been at the bottom. We've been 9 or 10 out of 10 provinces on much of the national testing programs that we are part of. So it would begin to see us start to climb again and reach our potential. Our children deserve the best in education, and we must provide this service to them. And the only way to do this is to make certain the Department of Education is working correctly and funding is distributed to the appropriate places. And that is why we are here today, Mr. Speaker. I'm pleased to see that the public school program will be receiving more money according to these estimates. This shows support to our teachers and staff. More money for our public schools means more educational services to our children, which we'll all benefit from. Certainly, as I've looked at the estimates over the last 3 years, since I became a member, I would have to say that a lot of the increase, a high percentage of the increase, has actually gone to support the staffing in our schools. Much of that actual increase in the education budget would reflect, in fact, the contractual agreements between the Nova Scotia Teachers Union and the province. And I think the time has come to show that here is the exact dollar that is going towards and working to improve our classrooms. The fact is, Mr. Speaker, now is a critical time in our education system, and we must meet the challenges that we face head on. One of my concerns is funding for children with special needs. Some children require more attention than others, and it is up to government to make sure our schools are equipped with the right professionals for the job. I remember speaking with a school board member from the Strait Regional School Board earlier in the year, and they were frantically trying to fill a position at a school for a language pathologist to aid children with specific speaking disorders. This particular school had the funding available, but could not find someone to work there. Mr. Speaker, this is indeed a serious problem, and we must address it and find a resolution to situations like these before they arise. We must ensure that more funding is provided to our post-secondary institutes and dedicated professionals in fields to help children in special education find employment. I believe we must fund programs for children with special needs, and I strongly recommend the government review its policies regarding this matter and direct more money to this area. And certainly, I would stop perhaps there, for a moment, and once again, relating a little bit to the member opposite who talked about special needs. And for a whole number of reasons, we certainly now identify more students of special needs in our schools, and also the pre-primary program will be another area in which we will be able to identify children who have special needs or high needs, and again, hopefully, they will be addressed. And I'll have some specific questions to that as I go along. Another important topic that must be discussed, Mr. Speaker, is that of school closures. It is a shame when a school in a rural community must close its doors, leaving a town or village with no educational institute. I might add that this is not only happening in rural communities, but in large areas like Halifax Regional Municipality. Recently, a member of this legislature put forward a resolution regarding the closure of schools under the Halifax Regional School Board. So as you can plainly see, this is not just a rural issue. Having said that, it seems that more often than not, it is the rural communities suffering because of the closure of a school. This is causing distress in a number of areas, Mr. Speaker. For one, the children are denied the right to education at a school close to them. And when a school closes, they now must travel long distances by school bus to attend another school, a larger school. This also causes distress to many parents. Any parent will tell you that they do not want their children taking an hour or more long bus trip to school. Often they must drive their children, which is causing them to spend even more money on their children's education. Fact is, we must find a more viable solution to this problem. Government must invest in providing children with a suitable learning center within reasonable distance of their homes. Closing the school is a difficult decision, and I do not envy those who have to make that decision. Schools are not only educational institutes for our children, but many times are in fact the community center, the heart of the community. Activities and public events regularly take place at schools due to their size and certainly location very often and historical use of the schools. The information highway upon us more than ever, the internet has replaced the telephone and it's rapidly becoming the most important and swift way to communicate and research for information. Many schools use their computer areas as public access domains for those who do not have computers at home. People pay a fee at the school and use their facilities just as they would at an internet cafe in a more urban area. Closure of a school can be necessary at times, but I believe we must look harder and find a resolution to this problem. On many occasions, this could have been avoided, and government has to work harder with school boards and their members to see that the closure of a school is the last possible resort to a situation. Which brings me to another point, Mr. Speaker. Almost 2 years ago, we had completion of a government-funded report, the HOG report, as it is generally referred to, funding formula for the students and school system in Nova Scotia. The HOG report has been repeatedly supported by the Halifax Regional School Board, can be a model for other school boards across the province. Certainly shows how to resolve some of the problems our school face today, such as school closures. Liberal caucus is also in full support of the implementations based on the HOG report. I am delighted to see that finally the government will be investing $5 million to implement the recommendations of the HOG report. I wonder why, however, it has taken so long to implement these recommendations. This was completed almost 2 years ago. It shows a lack of action by the government and how little they believe in the future of our children. However, let me stress that with these recommendations, our children will now have a better chance to receive the full benefits our education system has to offer. Mr. Speaker, I would be failing to act as a critic for the Liberal caucus if I did not bring up the next issue. The pre-primary program is an excellent initiative that can help numerous children across the province of Nova Scotia. I believe that the government has done the right thing by initiating this project. However, I will start here to ask some specific questions, and I will go back over some of the topics, themes that I've alluded to as we move through the next hour. First of all, Mr. Minister, did all 20 locations receive funding and go forward with the pre-primary program?
The Honourable the Minister of Education.
Mr. Chairman, to the member opposite, it's my understanding, my staff have just indicated to me that there were originally 20 sites. One board did not take advantage of one of the sites that was identified, so we are funding the 19 sites that were agreed upon by the boards.
The Honourable Member for Kings West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I was also wondering, Minister, what the cost of this pilot project was for its first year.
The Honourable the Minister of Education.
Mr. Chair, to member opposite, our quick math here, about $1.5 million for the 19 sites.
The Honourable Member for Kings West.
Thank you, Madam Minister. Are all of the school boards agreeing to second year with regards to the pre-primary? And also, does it look at this point that the government is committed to this project for the long term?
The Honorable, the Minister of Education.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and to the member opposite. We will be adding the second year in each one of those 19 sites. We will be monitoring the progress of those students who have moved from a pre-primary into the primary, and that whole pilot will be assessed to determine the effectiveness of it. So, in answer to your question, yes, all 19 will be going into their second year, and yes, we will be monitoring and evaluating the pilot.
The Honorable Member for Kings West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Certainly, I'm pleased to hear that that boards are going ahead with the second year. There's a couple of issues certainly in the local area where one of the pilots did take place this year, and that was at Dwight Ross Elementary School in the Greenwood area. One of the concerns that certainly I had raised at my office, and also which I personally took note of, was that and being a strong believer in early childhood education and an education that certainly prior to school will help those who are disadvantaged from their socioeconomic backgrounds. This program did not, reach out necessarily to that group. It was, once again, parents who were very much aware of what was going on in the school system, who were subscribers perhaps to the local newspaper, or who were in the circle of finding out about this program. And so in many ways, it certainly didn't reach down to that group. And I'm wondering, especially at the pilot level, if there couldn't have been a more concerted effort to draw some of those children in. And certainly one of the reasons in the rural area was the inability to be able to transport the children to these sites. And because I am a believer that this will become and should become a standard educational program across the province, but during the pilot stages, addressing a couple of those concerns, I think would be of real benefit to families and to children who could really benefit from the pre-primary. So if you could just comment on those two areas, Madam Minister, it would be much appreciated.
The Honorable Minister of Education.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the member opposite, you're correct. Transportation was not provided as part of those pre-primaries. We understand that in some boards, courtesy busing is allowing some students to have access to transportation to the schools for the pre-primary. However, as part of this review and in consultation with Transport Canada, we will be looking at if and how that transportation might be provided.
The Honourable Member for Kings West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Also, just wondering, Madam Minister, have you had any first-hand contact with one of the pilots? What are you hearing generally that is being said about the pre-primary pilot? Certainly, I know in my area there have been certainly a good many positives, and the one little negative that I will bring up as after your response. Just wondering where you are in terms of familiarity at the personal and professional level.
The Honourable Minister of Education.
Mr. Chairman, to member opposite, perhaps on a semi-personal professional level, I have had an opportunity to visit one of the sites in the Brookdale, Cumberland County area. I was there as part of facilitating the new school project, and so during my visits to that school as a follow-up after the school opened, I did have a chance to visit one of the pre-primary classrooms that's being piloted there. But on a professional basis, I know the comments that are coming to our department from the screening kind of pre-registration clinics for students coming in grade 5. that some positive comments are being made about the readiness of the students who have gone through the pre-primary program as they begin to register and enter for primary. So those informal comments that are coming through to us are positive. But again, a more detailed assessment and response and reaction from the participants, whether it's parents or teachers, will be part of the assessment.
The honourable member for Kings West.
I was going to follow with a couple of other questions here because I see this as an initiative that can make enormous, I think, positive gains for our students as they begin their primary year and as they continue on through the school system. I'm wondering if there was a considerable amount of work put into maybe not so much the curriculum, but rather the development of the program for these children. Is it somewhat of a carbon copy of a program that we have in Ontario? Is this very much based on early childhood recommendations here in the province? And what stage of development of something fairly prescribed from the department is now in place?
The Honourable Minister of Education.
Mr. Chairman, to the member opposite, it's my understanding that it was locally developed. It was developed at the Department of Education. It was developed by an educator who was on loan from Community Services to Department of Education to develop that, and that it is an activity-based program geared to the age groups of students at pre-primary.
The honourable member for Kings West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Madam Minister, for that little overview or synopsis, because I believe it's a critical piece as to what we do have in place for the children. Of course, a combination certainly of play and discovery and some prescription for a program, and certainly one that I think in year 2 will perhaps get a little bit more of a critique and so on from school boards. One of the concerns that I did go to the superintendent of the Annapolis Valley District School Board with was the fact that there was a concentrated area that children were taken from the 4-year-olds, and it had an impact on 2 local private nursery schools in our area. And one closed after the year got started last year, and a second one will close in the area this year. Now, we can always talk about a number of reasons perhaps as to why a private daycare, nursery school would close, but nevertheless, the impact of taking the 4-year-olds out in a concentrated area did impact economically for the owners and deliverers of those nursery schools. I'm just wondering if there was anything made at the department level this year as the second group of first-year children came into the pre-primary, whether or not was there anything designed to lessen its impact, because it is my understanding that this happened in a few other areas as well.
The Honourable Minister of Education.
Mr. Chairman, to the member opposite, the second year of the pilot is intended to use the same sites. We put significant dollars into developing those sites, facilities and resources in those spaces, and so our second year of the pilot was to continue to use the investment that we made in the first year as far as facilities, equipment, and resources. And therefore, it will be drawing from the same catchment areas.
The honourable member for Kings West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Another area is, I guess I'll probably go through the cycle of schooling from pre-primary to 12 and on to university as I make my remarks, not necessarily because I'm that sequential, and logical always in my approaches, but it seems like one of the things to do here. One of the areas that I had put some emphasis on and had meetings, a couple of meetings with the deputy in regards to this area, was the P2 breakfast program, and I was certainly pleased to see government bring that program in. And I know that last year was the first year when financial support was put in place across Nova Scotia to assist with a universal breakfast program. Again, I'm wondering if this was implemented across the province. There was supports that were provided to schools. I'm wondering to what degree of implementation that program did receive last year.
The Honourable Minister of Education.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, to the Minister opposite. The P2 breakfast program that's currently in place represents a $750,000 investment by the government, and that investment is in our budget for this year so that program will continue. And health and health promotion, of course, are also involved with that, but education's commitment is the same as last year's, the $750,000. And that's working at the site with school advisory councils and other community staff, but it is the same financial commitment from our department.
The Honourable Member for Kings West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Also wondering, Madam Minister, if some of that money is actually used to supply the food produce, the perishables, or our schools and school boards have to make that commitment before the program is implemented, because you did say that it is only partially implemented at this stage. And certainly, if there are some schools and school communities that are having difficulties with that part of implementing the program, where they may not have a full year-long commitment for certainly the food supply. So I'm wondering where the balance is from the department's perspectives.
The Honourable Minister of Education.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the member opposite. The $750,000 is for the school boards to provide the foods, the materials. We did put in a $400,000 commitment to get facilities set up and to buy equipment initially, but the $750,000 is in addition to that. And again, it is working with partners in the community and maybe local suppliers, but that's to be worked out at the school board level. And there's an expectation that the money that we give them, along with support from the community, will allow that initiative to be sustained. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Kings West.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. No, it's certainly a program that I think has been long overdue to be in all of our schools. Certainly one of the success stories in light of the challenges that certainly many families do have and circumstances to deal with children. In my earlier time as the education critic, I had heard from a number of people across the province and advocacy groups to see this take place. And I guess the only other piece to ask at this stage is whether or not in schools that are P2 or that have any other additional grades associated with elementary schools, or whether it be the remaining years in our public school system, if there is any kind of plan or support program around a breakfast program or a nutrition program.
The Honourable Minister of Education.
Mr. Chairman, to the member opposite, the administration of that plan is now under the direction of Office of Health and Health Promotion, and so perhaps the minister from that department may be able to provide that information, but they do administer that program now.
The Honourable Member for Kings West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you for that piece of information, and certainly we will pursue that there. Certainly one of the real advances made over the last couple of years, I feel, in the province has been the elementary cap from P to 2. I think for many of our schools, and certainly in talking with a number of administrators in my riding, I think there are 6 elementary schools, and I've been in them all this year. They certainly applaud that initiative by the government. However, last year, and I brought this to the attention of the minister of the day, that there were a number of classrooms still by the end of September that had 27, 28, 29. There were actually about 6 such classes in the area. Knowing that official enrollment figures do not have to be in until September 30th. However, in most of our elementary schools, small town, rural areas, those numbers are pretty well fixed and firm when school is shortly underway. And again, I'm wondering, you know, is it the onus on the school board, or are there directives from the ministry, you know, to make sure from very early in the school year, and hopefully planning right now will allow for those classes to start the year and be staffed so that we don't have to wait until mid-October, as was the case with 6 classrooms that I'm familiar with in the riding last year that had to pick up a new teacher, divide the students, and certainly after 5 or 6 weeks into school, and I know it was at least 6 weeks, in a couple of cases a little longer, because you have to go through the hiring process. So I'd like to know if there's stronger directives there from the ministry to make sure that the cap is adhered to and that it is followed in all cases.
The Honourable Minister of Education.
Mr. Chairman, to the member opposite, it's my understanding that generally speaking across the province, that was not an issue or not a concern, but that in your particular board, because of the makeup of the classes, the P1 combinations, that did surface as a concern, and that our board did go in, or our department did go in and provide additional money midway through the year to help resolve that, and hopefully the planning for next year that will be avoided in the planning, but it is a unique situation and it is unique to your board, and but we certainly did come through with the funding that was required to help resolve that.
The Honourable Member for Kings West.
Thank you, Speaker, and I certainly am aware that the problem was identified and the problem was corrected. But I was just wondering if there was something a little bit more general that was happening across the province, or certainly, you know, just difficulty getting the information to have staffing in place. So thank you for that explanation. One of the areas that certainly I heard a number of times when I was the education critic, and again this year to my office, a couple of probably 2 or 3 emails that I'm very much aware of, knowing the parents who did email me, is again resources. And I also heard this year from a couple of teachers who talk about having to need 2 or 3 years to get a set of textbooks. And in particular, the junior high in Colebrook was one of the teachers that wrote me and said that he was working on his 3rd year to get a set of texts. Now I know that there are credit allocations to schools, and you know, I'm wondering, especially when new courses are brought in, or within a few years, if in fact there's a way to be more responsive here and to have a full class set of a pretty basic text. This may indeed be the 21st century, and electronic technologies are filling our homes more and more. but certainly most of the parents still talk about having a basic text as a tool for their children. And again, I'm wondering if there's plans to expand the school credit allocations for textbooks, and if there is something in particular at the elementary and junior high level for textbooks.
The Honorable Minister of Education.
Mr. Chairman, to member opposite, you're correct. There is a textbook allocation, and that money goes to the boards, and the schools have access to that money to purchase textbooks and other resources that are required for the delivery of curriculum. If it is a new course that is being introduced by the province, then we look after providing the textbooks for that up front, because textbooks are very expensive, so we would not expect a school to take the money out of their textbook allocation to implement a new course. But we do provide the board with those dollars, and at the board level that is administered, and teachers are provided with the textbooks that they identify as being needed in order to deliver their curriculum. It's my understanding that the per pupil allocation is up to $65 per student. And so when you're looking at your total population, you can use that as a guide as to what kind of dollars are going out to that board. And it's at the discretion of the board to order the books that are identified by their teachers as required. I would say that a lot of our courses now are activity-based, and the whole notion of every student having a textbook for every subject is not as it was when we were in school.
The Honourable Member for Kings West.
Mr. Speaker, and Madam Minister, while I would endorse that statement as well, it's not always the parent who will buy into that statement, I'm afraid. One of the areas that the NDP critic brought up and was very strong in talking about, and again it goes back to an area that we were basically familiar with guidance counselors at the senior high level. Occasionally one in a grade 7 to 12 school that would have a guidance counselor assigned for junior high. But more and more, again, I'm hearing from teachers and from schools, and also at the parental level, who will call and say, my child has this problem. You've been an educator, and sometimes you get calls because of that, as opposed to being the MLA, and that is in terms of guidance in elementary schools, and people trained in child psychology, and I certainly see a big need and to expand that particular role, and I see it juxtapositioned along a very well-resourced community center at 14 Wayne Greenwood. And so at the resource center, they have a number of people that work with young children, but yet at the local school, we don't find such a service or professional in place. And I'm just wondering what the Ministry of Education in the province is thinking in that view of moving this need into, I think, a strong action plan. I think that the time has really come for our elementary schools to have somebody available. Generally, our teachers have a very full day. The principal as well. Many of our elementary schools don't have a vice principal. And I know, certainly having been in the role of a vice principal, guidance becomes a little bit of that domain sometimes. But having a professional in place, I think, maybe at the elementary level, maybe something that whose time has come on an expanded scale. And I'm wondering what the Department of Education is thinking and planning in that regard.
The Honourable Minister of Education.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the member opposite, When I spoke earlier about the infusion of money into guidance, it was the first time we have taken a lump sum and earmarked it for that. It's targeted for guidance counselors. We recognize that the first draw on that will be to make sure that we have all of the guidance counselors in place at the high school level, then move down into junior high. And your concern about needs of students at the elementary level does not go unnoticed. I recognize that. I think we all recognize that there are many students that need guidance and support, and in a lot of cases, the best source of that is in the classrooms and at the schools. So we recognize that. The deployment of that money will be monitored, so we will know how boards are using that, but it is our intent to continue that support until we do have the guidance counselors and systems in place in all of our schools to address student needs.
The honourable member for Kings West.
Thank you, Speaker, and thank you, Madam Minister, for that response. It certainly is positive. I know there isn't a timeline nor a specific dollar figure attached, but certainly the direction is one that I certainly concur with. One of the topics that has already been debated, certainly presented here in the House since we've started the late spring, early summer session, is regarding small schools and the closure of schools. I know that we are at a time when there is certainly a review of this very, very important topic. It's one that all school boards at one time or another do face. Certainly my own experience shows that once a school drops down below 100 students, certainly it's in a pretty precarious position as to its survival, and we don't often look for a strong enough raison d'etre to keep it going, to have it remain as a vital and integral part of the community. First of all, I know you've put in place a panel to review school closures in the province. I'm just wondering what course that will take. What's going to be some of that process? Because we all know that sometimes the work of voluntary planning, of commissions, and so on, a report is done, but without sometimes the voice of the community being strongly presented, adhered to, and I'm just wondering what some of that process will be.
The Honourable Minister of Education.
Mr. Chairman, to the member opposite, the review is, as you've mentioned, it has been called for. It will begin in the fall, and one of the main components of that review will be consultation. We want to hear what people in the communities are saying, and we would encourage people to take advantage of the opportunities, whether it is going to present a submission to them, whether it's using email or whether it's going to a public meeting. But the purpose of the review is to find out what Nova Scotians and communities and parents are saying about school closures. We all know that there are bodies of research out there that support the small school and the large school, and you can take whichever body of research you want and you can use it to your best advantage. But what we want to hear from is what the people in these communities have to say, and the review provides an opportunity for them to do that. And then those responses and the information that we hear through consultation will come back, and we're asking those who are doing the review to give us a report and recommendations. And the consultation process is very much part of that review.
The honourable member for Kings West.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Madam Minister, I'm pleased to hear that the goal is indeed the widest possible consultation, because I know that having been at a couple of school closure meetings over the years, there are few more emotional kinds of settings and climates for parents to certainly present their views. So, my goal and hope from this process at the end of the day is that we will have a very defined, maybe not so much a school closure policy, but rather a small school policy. One that will identify perhaps the necessity of having small schools. There are, in fact, I believe, community schools that do need to be kept open, and that resources should be given those schools so that they, in fact, can go well down below the normal per teacher funding formula. Certainly, it is my understanding that the Hogg report was in fact was to embrace some of that difficulty and frustration that communities are now experiencing in regards to their small schools. I think if we take a look in the statistical summary, we see a number of small schools. Forget now what page this is on here, but certainly the number of small schools in Nova Scotia is indeed pretty considerable. Some below 50, a number below 100. And I'm wondering if the thrust of the review it will be a closure policy, or in fact, will it be a small school survival policy?
The Honourable Minister of Education.
Mr. Chairman, to the member opposite, the review is a review of the legislation that currently exists, and if the results from the review, report, and recommendations deem that there needs to be a change in the legislation, then that would come before the House. But I might say that in reference to your small schools, there is an allocation in the funding that goes to the boards to address the small schools, $150,000, I believe it is, per school to address the small school needs. So that part of that report is being implemented and is included in the allocation that boards do receive.
The Honourable Member for Kings West.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And that, in my view, is a pretty small amount of money. If we take a look at the reality in Nova Scotia right now, there are 99 schools, 57 schools that have less than 99 students. So we have 57 small schools that are very vulnerable to certainly closing. And it would be my hope that the legislation would reflect that most of these small schools have a vital place in their communities, and that would be the thrust of the legislation. And certainly funding would reflect those kinds of needs. I'm just wondering if the minister has anything further to present along those lines in terms of the mandate given to the review panel.
The Honourable Minister of Education.
Mr. Chairman, to the member opposite, when I spoke earlier, I was talking about a review of the legislation, but there's also a review of board policies and procedures with respect to school closure studies. So that will be reviewed at the board level as well by the same review team. So it's the legislation in the Act and board policy and procedure.
The Honourable Member for Kings West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Madam Minister, for that clarification, and certainly look forward to hopefully presenting and certainly attending some of those review sessions that may be in my local area. One of the other areas that was talked about today was the number of parents that are looking at alternate schooling for their children as they begin their years of education. Some are are now reverting or are using a combination of homeschooling and entering the public schooling at a later time. I'm just wondering if the Department of Education has reviewed or is reviewing the kinds of supports that may be available to those that are homeschooled. I know other provinces have recognized that there are very legitimate reasons. There are sometimes medical reasons as to why a child will not attend public school. Since there's no $5,280 a year that will go to that family as it will go to a school board to educate a child. The mainstay of funding is still on a per pupil basis. There are no benefits to that family, of course, that will come currently if somebody is homeschooled. I think it's an area that here in the province we do need to take a look at, even if we look at a number of children who have allergies, for example, and that going to public school certainly is a strong endangerment to their